Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Sunday morning Joe and Joe Weather Show, the 26th of September, 2021, on a spectacular Sunday up and down the eastern seaboard. The beautiful blue cloud-free skies just about everywhere except in northern New England. And, of course, we have the latest on Sam the Buzzsaw. Out in the tropical Atlantic, which we will get to momentarily, but Weather in 5, the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Weather in 5 is another video that I do. The Joe and Joe Weather Show is brought to you by Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini, your complete holiday lighting specialist, meeting all your decorating needs. They've been getting their deliveries. The garland came in this week. And don't forget, if you're a contractor, they are having a holiday lighting open house free event on Tuesday, October the 5th from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. at 164 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, which is right next door to their main office at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, New York on Long Island. And you can RSVP at 631-957-5106, or you can go to the website liholidaylighting.com, and the wreaths are in, the garland is in, they got the Halloween stuff in case you're still interested in getting your house decorated for Halloween, or you want to do it, have someone else do it, and the countdown to Christmas continues. So let them know and give them a call. Also brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, 631-756-1125, the phone number there. And get your orders in for salt because there's going to be a shortage of salt this year, and it's affecting prices. They are going to have the lowest prices around. Also, Pelado and Mag ice pellets and flakes, all at Omni True Value Hardware, and the website is omnitruevalue.com. So you mentioned the other day, Mr. Rayo, that October is known. Hold on, I got to find our video. There we go. Why is my camera turned off? Oh, that's really strange. Hold on a second.
I said to myself, why is that I only see his name?
Well, why
Joe
didn't
Chiappi? And why am I not seeing him?
All right, hold on. There we go. I never have to fix that setting. For some reason, the setting was turned off. Technology, Joe. Technology.
You were with me when I called you up about 5 minutes ago, but then all of a sudden you just disappeared. You said that this is not weather in 5, but I tell you true that the weather is so beautiful and the weather is so quiet, save for what's happening in the tropics, that we might just as well do weather in 5, because there really isn't all that much to talk about coming our way in the next several days. And also, I want to refer to this as, the tropical outlook. I want to refer to it as the forecast. You know why?
Why?
Because I don't remember this, Joe. I cannot remember, and I know you, just like me, you go back a number of years. I'm looking at the Hurricane Center track for Sam, and all I see on there is major hurricane, right straight through the whole track. And I don't remember from start time all the way out to 5 days out ever seeing every single plot, every single point indicated by an M. This is going to be, as we've been talking about this for the last several days, and I said that it probably would reach a peak of Cat 4. It has done that, but now the way this thing looks right now, I could see it at least for a while touching Cat 5. This is an amazing storm. Your classic major destructive type hurricane, which fortunately at this moment is out in the middle of nowhere and is only causing problems if you're a fish.
Yes, and it's also very small. The last I checked, yes. I didn't look at the marine advisory, but I noticed yesterday, gales only go out like 60 or 70 miles from the center, and the hurricane force winds are basically in a 15-mile radius. So if you want to use maybe like a coin analogy, where you have storms the size of and the satellite signature the size of a silver dollar or a half dollar as being those very large, let's call them ginormous storms, as the Hurricane Center used on a storm last year. This one's the size of a dime, which is smaller than a penny.
Right.
But no doubt it's a powerhouse, and no doubt that it's got that it's got that buzzsaw look. Still seeing the feathering of those high clouds, Joe. They had a recon there yesterday evening on the drop zone at not at ground level, obviously, but up at where they were flying at flight level, 153 and 157 knots. Timothy Veltman, one of our regulars, messaged me about it. It's like, this thing is so wrapped up tight. The drop zone must have been, they dropped it in and then it got picked up by the winds inside the eye wall, and it was rotate. I'm kidding, of course. The drop zone was picked up and just basically rotating around the whole eye wall. It really is just. Whenever I see storms like this, you have to just take a step back and just be in awe. I mean, this really is, from a meteorological perspective, you can just sit there with your mouth gaped wide open and just look at it. It's so amazing.
Well, if you look at it on the upper level, the 500 millibar, the geopotential height and anomaly map, it looks like a little dot, a little blue, a dark blue, admittedly, because it's so intense, but just a little blue dot. It does not look like the standard type of system that you see, several Rossby wave contours spreading out over, let's say, a couple of 100 miles. This thing is like that. And eventually, as it comes northward and starts moving into colder waters, it will begin to open up and spread out a little bit more. But really, I mean, even the ensemble models are having a tough time in showing you where this is because, again, it's such a very small system.
Yeah.
It's really.
And you know what? I don't want to read too much into it. I'm just kind of using my 63, almost 63-year-old eyeballs, and I'm looking. We got the floater imagery, the loop up there. The eye is so incredibly tight. It's probably like 5 nautical miles in diameter. It's so tight. And also on the floater imagery can be a little bit tricky to watch because the storm just basically sits in the center of the picture and the latitude and longitude lines move. But I kind of notice on the last several frames that the eye, it looks on the floater, it's going to look like it's moving southward. But because it's kept in the center of the picture, it's actually moving more westward. So maybe there's, it's probably just wobbling because it's so darn intense. There might be a little bit of a westward wobble here, more west than west-northwest for the last, 3 or 4 hours or so. But that by no means is that an indication of that some sort of longer-term thing going on. Maybe it's going to take a little longer for it to turn more northwest in time. And the other thing is, it's moving so slow. It's moving at under 10 miles an hour. This thing is literally creeping along. It's moving almost as slow as the front was moving through here in the east the other day.
Right. And you spoke about how small the eye is. I mentioned this at the last show. In 1975, we had a hurricane similarly strong and similarly small, Gladys, and you did see the eye on Gladys, but the eye looked like somebody had taken a knitting needle and just
like a pinprick
right in the middle or whatever, like a pinprick. Exactly. Occasionally you'll see these kind of very tight hurricanes, these tropical cyclones, which are very strong, very potent, but also very small, a tight little storm. And this is certainly an example of that with Sam.
Well, let's run through some of the guidance this morning. Got the hurricane tracking models that take Sam. They seem to have shifted to the left overnight, with a number of them bringing it very, very close to Bermuda, but not for another 6 or 7 days. So we could be very well here next Sunday still talking about this at the rate it's moving, at the rate it's going. But there's a bit more spread in the models. I still think that there's a lot of there's so much out going on in the Atlantic with this crashing negative North Atlantic oscillation, the pattern getting increasingly blocky as we go through the week. When you have, I said last week, when you have a progressive west to east pattern, it makes life a whole lot easier from a forecast standpoint because you kind of know where everything's going. But if you've got all these other upper lows running around and upper highs that are cutting off and upper lows that are cutting off, it does give the models a bit headaches. And I think we saw that. You saw that seen it over the last 3 days with different models doing different things. Although I have to admit, the GFS has been probably the most consistent in keeping things mostly offshore. But I don't know. I'm still a little bit cautious here. We're still talking a week, almost a week before it gets anywhere close to our own latitude. So a lot can happen in the course of a week.
But if you do just a sheer eyeball extrapolation, it's obvious that if you are on the island of Bermuda, you have something to worry about possibly for next weekend. Now, of course, a lot can happen between now and next Saturday, for example. The storm could take more of a track to the north and east or more to the west. But right now, if you were to take this at face value, yeah, it looks like Bermuda is looking right down the middle of this potential track with this. It always amazes me where, Bermuda's just a little dot out in the middle of the Atlantic, not in the middle, but out in the Atlantic Ocean. And it always seems that these tropical systems seem to be drawn, if not directly, but very close to Bermuda. So the folks who live there certainly must be aware and must be used to something like this. And it'll be interesting to see what happens as we get toward the latter part of this week and into next weekend as to where Sam is going to be relative to Bermuda Island.
And they've had their share of major hurricanes in the last 10 years. And I always find it remarkable that I think it was Gonzalo that they had 130, 140 mile an hour winds. And, of course, you see the pictures the next day of the damage. A week later, you look at it and you wouldn't even know that it had been through there. They get out there, they fix everything up, they get it all done. I mean, I know it's a small island with a very small population. If you've never been to Bermuda, you got to go. It's a gorgeous small island, very British, and it's just absolutely beautiful. The intensity guidance, by the way, the vast majority of the models, they have this as a major pretty much right through the next 5 days. As you stated, Joe, M's all on the Hurricane Center forecast. But you've got a fair number of models here that are still keeping a Category 4 through that period, and you actually have a couple of them, three of them, that take it up to a Cat 5. So there's certainly plenty of time, and it's still not even at 15 north yet. I mean, it's so far south. The ocean water temperatures there are at their seasonal highs, up in the low and middle 80s. It doesn't really have that far to go to get there. And here's the Hurricane Center's forecast track, which it really didn't change too much. They kind of shifted the last 2 days a little bit more to the south and west of the previous run, but you can kind of see that gradual turn to the northwest. They're sort of also looking at Bermuda and saying, maybe this is going to make a very close pass to Bermuda sometime next weekend, assuming everything else stays the same.
Yeah. Well, that never happens, especially much beyond 5 days. Stuff like that does not happen. So that's why I say for now, it looks like Bermuda may be in the crosshairs, so to speak, but things can change as we get closer and get a better and more precise idea as to the track. And to show you how things have changed, Joe, 40 years ago, when I was working at a private weather service, and there was a storm. I think it was Hurricane Floyd, not the Floyd that, of course, affected our area in 1999, but in 1981, I believe, there was a hurricane named Floyd, and it was heading right toward Bermuda. And I called up one of the radio stations there on Bermuda just to get a voice or a actuality from somebody. And the person who I spoke with at and it was like one of the national radio stations for Bermuda, or one of the government-owned radio stations, totally unaware that this storm was heading toward them. And I was like in disbelief. And I said, you don't know that you've got a major storm heading toward you? And what ended up happening is that I put them in touch with Dr. Neil Frank at the National Hurricane Center, who then provided them with more information. But I told them initially, I said, this thing's heading right for you. I have to find, and I'm going to, after we get off the show today, I still have the letter. And I still remember the name. The name of the woman was Darlene Ming. She was the news director of the, again, government radio station in Bermuda. And she sent me a note back, thanking me. They had no clue. And now here we are 40 years later, and I'm sure they're already aware 5 days in advance that they're going to be threatened by a major storm, whereas like 40 years ago, this thing was almost on them. And they would say, oh, really? We've got a hurricane coming? We did,
Yeah.
It's amazing how technology and the the knowledge of events like this have changed so much in just a matter of 4 decades.
Yeah, see, it seems like that technology has reached just about everybody except a few gas bags.
Yes.
All right. So we'll come back to Sam and the upper air. I want to switch off and let's talk about the weather across the U.S., which is actually very quiet. And I would say unusually quiet, except for the fact that it's not unusual for this time of year to wake up on a given day and see the vast majority of the United States cloud free. But my God, if you look at the U.S. loop this morning, there really is, it's very much a cloud free existence here. You've got, except for northern New England, where some rain is still going on in parts of Maine. That'll be moving out in time. If you look on the upper right, you can see that might be the leftovers of Teresa, subtropical storm Teresa that formed. You went out.
Is it Teresa
or
is
Teresa?
It Teresa or Teresa?
I think
Teresa?
it's Teresa or Teresa because there's no H in there. Yeah. But you can still actually see the low-level swirl is still out there, well east of the North Carolina coast. All the convection was lifted up and gotten absorbed by the low that's up in southeastern Canada there, and that's moving off to the northeast. You can also see on the edge on the middle right, the bright white clouds. That's something the Hurricane Center mentioned in their tropical weather outlook, although they said that's, it's only marginally conducive. But hey, the system that developed into Teresa was, as I recall, it almost came out of nowhere, even though they did have it in their outlook. But up and down the eastern seaboard, except for northern New England, it's a gorgeous day. It goes back to the Mississippi River. You got clouds in the Great Lakes. The plains are dry. The only place where there's any kind of action today, as far as severe weather, there's this little upper low, Joe, in the southwest in southwest Arizona, and that's where the Storm Prediction Center's got some severe weather risks. But other than that, the whole week, from the standpoint of severe weather risk, looks very quiet. And by the way, Friday morning, because we had no show on Friday, the low at Blairsville Airport was 41, and the low at my house was 40. So, we had that poll saying who would get to 40 first, me or Joe. So I guess if you use the Blairsville, the airport, the answer would be no. If you use my house, the answer would be yes. So, and I remember that I got there first.
We got there down to 50 yesterday. So far, that's been it. That has been the lowest temperature that I've seen so far this young season is 50 degrees. We have yet to drop into the 40s. In fact, I said to myself yesterday morning, because it felt rather chilly, I said to Renata, I think we finally dipped into the upper 40s. I think we're 48, 49. No, 50. That was our low. So we haven't been able to crack 50. And here you are talking about temperatures already down through the 40s to around 40. So any of you out there who voted that Joe was going to get, maybe to 32 before I did, I think you made a safe bet. And incidentally, I'm not sure whether or not that upper low in the Southwest had anything to do with this. We think of San Diego as the one spot of the United States that has virtually perfect weather. Every single day, it seems like you wake up to like 72.
You mean where Sal Blandino should move to? Yes.
Right. Every single afternoon, it's like 72, blue sky. In the morning, it's nice and cool. There's never any kind of major. Well, back a couple of days ago, on September 24th, in the late day hours in San Diego, severe thunderstorms in San Diego County, in and around downtown San Diego, instantaneous rain rates of up to 3 inches per hour. I didn't even think that was possible in San Diego, but they did have an interval again on a couple of days ago, September 24th, where the rain rate was coming down at nearly 3 inches, actually 2.74 inches per hour in and around the San Diego area. And
that is crazy.
Yeah. Where was all that rain when they needed it back in July and August when they had all those wildfires? But it's even interesting now that they're getting into it, because now they're getting into the Santa Ana season where, they have some of their hottest temperatures coming up in the next several weeks. This kind of rain, they don't normally see that until synoptically the winter season. But they had it for a brief time just a few days ago.
Yep. Crazy times we live in. There's the radar. Again, you see that rain that's up in Maine. Even some flash flood warnings are up for parts of Maine. Looks like, I would say, near and around Bangor, Augusta, right in that zone. But everywhere else on the radar, all the way down to southern Florida, just nothing, not a drop. The Gulf states are dry. A couple of showers up in the northern lakes that are moving southeastward. And also up in the Pacific Northwest, seeing some rain there. And in the Southwest, you can see the rotation here, the little counterclockwise rotation with that upper low. WPC rainfall forecast for this week for the Northeast, for much of the Northeast, is between 100th and 1/10 of an inch. Certainly for eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. What you're seeing up in Maine, a lot of that's front end loaded with what's going on today, but the next weather front will probably give them a little bit more. The main rain action is going to be in Texas and West Texas, eastern New Mexico, down in that zone where there could be several inches. The Southeast is dry. Next 7 days, not a drop of rain for me. And in the Pacific Northwest and up down into Northern California, we'll seeing some substantial rainfall amounts in some places over the next week. And as we said, the Storm Prediction Center has just got that marginal risk in southern Arizona, southwestern New Mexico for today, and no severe weather forecast for Monday and Tuesday, and probability too low for the day 4 through 8 time frame. So maybe we could put the severe weather stuff to bed for a while, because it's been very busy from that standpoint all summer long, and going into the beginning of fall. So maybe we can take a break from the severe weather stuff for a bit.
Now, if you could undisable the share screen, I could share the Climate Prediction Center outlook, which looks rather nice for not just the next 6 to 10, but also for the next 8 to 14 days and even beyond. Oh, there we go. All righty. So I'm going to.
That was easy enough to do.
Yeah, it was. First of all, I just want to point out for those of you who have, who normally would go to this, that they've upgraded or updated the maps. They have a different look to them now.
Oh, they look beautiful. Beautiful.
Quite frank. Whoops, that's a little bit too
Look
close.
At those autumn colors.
Yes. So it's valid for the 1st to the 5th of October, up in our neck of the woods here in the Northeast, near or even above normal probability for above normal temperatures. And that is also about the same for you, Joe. They really have above normal across much of the northern plains, the nation's heartland, western sections of the Great Lakes area. So, in fact, the only place that's below normal is along the extreme coastline of the Southeast and for Florida, and also for parts of the desert Southwest, New Mexico, and portions of Arizona. Now you say to yourself, well, what about the precipitation. There you go. Look at this. From October 1st to the 5th, below normal for much of the eastern half of the country, especially so for the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, down through the Tennessee, and even portions of the Mississippi Valley. Again, the only place that's above normal is here in portions of Texas and New Mexico, stretching back into parts of Arizona. Now that's for the 6 to 10 day outlook.
Right, that's October 1st. That's October 1st to October 5th. So this coming Friday to next Tuesday.
Well, take a look at this now. This is October 3rd through the 9th, the 8 to 14 day outlook. And again, above normal probabilities now cover much of the country except near normal for the portions of the southeast, southern Georgia, much of Florida. Much of Florida, in fact, is below normal to a slight degree and near normal across. But that's also where I would presume the precipitation is. In fact, speaking of precipitation, take a look at this. I mean, my goodness, this is another series of days. You talk about how wet the summer was. You talk about how wet it was during July and August, and I think right now we're into the 6th wettest September at Central Park. And look at all these below normal regions, especially so all the way out to the east. And the only place, again, that's seeing a lot of rainfall is across New Mexico and across parts of Arizona. So if you take this at face value, again, a lot of the country will be enjoying above normal temperatures and below normal precipitation. In fact, we can take this even further. This is the 3 to 4 week outlook, taking us all the way to the 22nd of October. And it shows much of the country in above normal. They have, they have in your neck of the woods, Joe, and down into Florida, equal chances of temperatures. And this is rather, they must really feel confident because this is something you don't often see on this 3 to 4 week prog, a zone of 80% probability. They must really feel that this zone up here is going to be way above normal. And that includes, again, portions of the Plain States and Western Great Lakes, 80% probability, below normal in the southwestern states, especially so over Southern California and portions of Arizona. And as far as precipitation is concerned, well, you take a look at this. Below normal precipitation for much of the east, except near normal or equal chances across the southeastern states, and above normal over the Pacific Northwest, where they could have used some of that moisture back over the summertime, but now it looks like they're going to be wet. We're going to be mostly dry. So if you take all of this from the, again, Climate Prediction Center, get ready, because it looks like as we move into October, for the most part, October looks to be a rather dry, and also, at least for our part of the country here in the Northeast, a rather mild period of time, at least through the first half and maybe the first 3 quarters of October. That's pretty good.
Yep. All right, I got. We'll go back to the tropics here, because through all of this, it does seem that we're going to blow through the name list and go to the alternate list pretty soon. The way things are going, I would suggest off the Climate Prediction Center, if you look at Joe, if you look where they have the below normal temperatures in the southeast or the equal chances, the southeast, where the only part where it's cooler, there's going to be troughing there. So I'm thinking, that's probably going to signal maybe the potential eventually for something to develop in the Caribbean, the Northwest Caribbean, or in the Gulf of Mexico later in the forecast period. In the meantime, just rolling it back to present time, I've actually kind of rolled this a little bit ahead, but you can see Sam there passing north of the Leeward Islands. Although on this last 60 run, Joe, it's still offshore, but it's a little bit closer to the northern leewards than it has been over the last several days. And you can see that there's another one. There's a wave that's off the African coast. Looks like that develops as it moves westward, although it's going to be moving over upwelled water, so it'll be interesting to see if that has some impact here. And on this run last night, the GFS took this pretty much very, very close, right over Bermuda or just east of Bermuda. But one big difference on this run that I think is important is the fact that unlike the last over the weekend, I'm sorry, the last several days and up until this run, the GFS has been wanting to slingshot this, pretty much straight north toward Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, but particularly more Newfoundland than anything else. It's kind of hooking it up to the right like this. And as a result, I saw yesterday where an outcome like that, if Sam were to do that, it would be you'd wind up with a really deep trough off the East Coast. And I was looking at some of the temperature profiles that the GFS was generating. It would argue that on the backside of it, you'd see temperatures by day not getting much above the low and mid 60s and nighttime lows down in the 40s. If that were the case at the end of this week and in the beginning of next week. But I think what we're seeing here on the latest runs, and based on the fact that this thing is just creeping along, I think the GFS was in a bit of a rush in moving this northward, and it's a little slower here because we're looking at this is next Saturday night. Instead of slingshotting it north, it ejects it out to the east and northeast. So that means the next high goes into southeastern Canada and New England, and we, have onshore flow issues that develop along the middle and South Atlantic coast. And you can see also that the model does start to generate some lower than normal pressures in the Northwest Caribbean, with something trying to come out there, very, very late in the forecast period. So, Sam's a bit of a wild card here, I think, in terms of the long range, because if it winds up slingshotting straight north and going up, up toward Newfoundland, that's going to make for a different profile in the eastern part of the United States as far as the weather is concerned. So, the CPC folks, I'm not. This is not a criticism of their forecast. I assuming that, but I think Sam is the wild card here that you have to consider, that it could alter if it winds up going up into that part of Canada. It could wind up altering the longer range view to an extent. So that's something I think we should, probably going to have to keep our eyes on as we keep trying to figure out where this is all going to wind up.
Yeah, I said back on Friday, I said that I had a feeling that maybe as we get toward the latter part of this week, that things might be getting a little antsy or a little, I wouldn't say stressful or whatever, but I think maybe we'll be looking at some interesting changes and interesting, relative to what Sam may be doing. Are we all going to be in the Sam's Club by the end of this week? I don't know.
I'm pulling out.
We'll see.
I've pulled out yesterday's 12Z run on the upper air here, just to illustrate what I'm talking about. And you see the trough that comes through. Well, we got this upper trough that is swung through today. So, of course, we're getting this, absolutely gorgeous air in the eastern part of the United States. And then the next short wave swinging through James Bay strengthens an upper low in southeastern Labrador, but you can see how far south that trough is. This is by Wednesday, this deep trough that's running down off the East Coast. It's all part of this blocky signature that's been trying to develop. And pointed out last week, when you look at these when you look at the teleconnections, they're all fine and dandy, in terms of telling you if we're going to have a negative North Atlantic oscillation, a blocky pattern, or if we're going to have a positive Pacific North America pattern, which tells you that there's a trough in the east. The problem with the teleconnections are that they don't tell you where in the east is the trough going to be. Is it going to be at 85? Is it going to be along 80 west? Is it going to be along 70? And in the GFS's view, the trough is out near 70. Now, here's where it sort of made this big, vigorous cutoff in the Gulf of Maine, and Sam just rocket ships up well east of Bermuda, but goes straight up northward into Newfoundland. And of course, that reinforces that upper low that's sitting in Canada there and keeps us in this trough position right through next week and into early next week. And it would be quite cool if this were the case. Now, today's is different, the overnight run anyway, so I'll switch over to that, and you'll see the difference in how the upper trough in the east is not there. It's instead of settling into eastern Canada, the upper low, let's roll it back here. So here we are for tomorrow. You got this strong upper low that drops down into New Hampshire and Vermont, which means we get, a fairly cool shot of air that comes in for Thursday and Friday into the Northeast and mid-Atlantic states. And then the upper low just kind of rotates around, and Sam comes up. And at this point now, the upper low in Canada is actually shifting eastward, so it slingshots it to the east-northeast or northeast out to sea. And then there's another upper low that drops down behind it that gets left over in the Great Lakes. I mean, you're kind of look how it's very blocky here. But at this point, Sam is long gone. But it's still pretty blocky. You got a cutoff low there in Kentucky, and it's not a shabby looking cutoff either. So I think these models are just having a rough time with this whole NAO going negative by 2 or 3 standard deviations. It's really having a rough time figuring out how to approach this in the coming week. And the other thing, Joe, is the fact that the European is no help. The European has been, kept insisting on trying to drop the upper low down to this current upper low, the bottom of it dropping down into the southwest, and now it kind of caved over to the GFS's idea. Although it does try to still slingshot this into eastern Newfoundland, but it has more troughing into the eastern United States late next week and into early next week. So, I don't know. I always get nervous when there's blocking around, because I think that really does put a lot of monkey wrenches into what normally would be considered a general, easy west to east flow that you can have a much easier time forecasting it than you can with this one. So I'm perplexed.
Well, it's the old game that we've been playing here in this weather business for better than 40 years, the time that you and I have been in this game. And the old game is the game of splits and blocks. And that's what you have to, that's basically what weather all amounts to, is where's the split flow going to be? Where's the block going to be? And where is the associated surface features going to go relative to the splits and blocks? And we'll be watching this carefully and seeing how everything pans out. Joe, a few people on the chat board have been making reference to the occasional political commentary. Izzy D, especially, saying that he loves our term political gas bag.
Right, because that's not, by the way, that's nonpartisan, by the way. Okay, political gas bags is a nonpartisan thing.
That's right. That's absolutely right. It can go for both ways. But in terms of our little, occasionally we do our imitations of the former governor, and people, might be thinking that we're taking pot shots or exaggerating the fact that this man actually said at one time that New York didn't have at one time hurricanes or floods or whatever. So I finally have something loaded up here, and I think it will come through. I want to play I'm going to go back to share screen, and I want to play the segment of the 2-part series that I did for News 12 about 10 years ago called Climate of Concern, where we actually have, in the aftermath of Sandy, the former governor of New York making his commentary that we never had this kind of weather before Sandy, and then pointing out that, well, that's not quite true. So let me just see if this will work. I'm going to share the screen. Let's see if I can get it to share. What am I looking for here precisely? Hold on. Oh, over here. Okay, now let me share that screen.
By the way, Izzy D hitting a super chat today. Thank you, Izzy. And Leon Probitsky hitting super chat today, along with Steve Lapointe, who hit super chat before the show started. And we're glad to see Steve back after his long vacation down in Virginia. Oh, he doesn't like but he
I'm not sure.
doesn't like the fact that he has long drives when you're down in the country. And if you're a city folk, you're a city folk, country folk, or country folk. There
Now,
he is.
can you see that?
Yes, we can see it.
Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm just going to move my microphone over here a little bit, and I'm going to try to get on my. This is off of my speaker or whatever, but I want you to hear his comments now. This is, again, as you can see, New York City subway running again with limited services, all after Sandy, and they asked him about this. And here's what the governor said to all of that.
When we designed and built New York, we did not think of floods and storms because we didn't have them. They happened in other parts of the country. We didn't have hurricanes and we didn't have floods.
Well, quite the contrary. When New York was getting started, there were floods, and most definitely there were hurricanes. We did some research and discovered that between 1693 and 1869, New York State was impacted by tropical cyclones no fewer than 25 times. Interestingly, the decade of the 1950s was far more active so far as hurricanes and tropical storms affecting the Northeast United States compared to now. And in September of 1960 came Hurricane Donna.
Island, there's the first problem. Surging currents in New York Bay cut off ferry service, isolating the island for hours. It's a bad day for boatmen and householders. Major breaks in the city's subway service strand hundreds, and most of the major arterial highways are flooded.
No, we didn't have, yeah, right, Governor. We didn't have hurricanes before Sandy here in New York.
Yes,
no, we didn't have the.
Don't you love those old newsreels? I love those old newsreels. They're.
Well, I mean, you know, we had to answer that, and you have no idea, Joe. You have no idea all the emails that I got in the aftermath. The people who were very upset that, you know, oh, the governor's doing his best. The governor's doing. Why are you picking on the governor? And I pointed out, I said, we're not picking on him. He made a statement. He made a comment about weather and meteorology, which is something that I have been involved with for many years. And I just wanted a rebuttal. And we rebutted him. We demonstrated, no, Sandy is not unique. Sandy is just one of many that have hit us over the years, over the decades, over the centuries. Like I said, we went all the way back into the 16 and 1700s and found tropical cyclones that did a number on New York City. So please don't try to give the idea that Sandy is now a part of global warming and climate change, because it isn't. Sandy was just one of many storms that have hit us over many, many, many years. And for all of you out there who's just on the chat board saying that, you know, he really didn't say that, or why do you say things like you just saw for yourself? There was no floods. We didn't have hurricanes. We didn't have so there you go.
We didn't have subways in 1821 that we had to worry about them flooding. No, for Christ's sake, you probably didn't have sewers either.
Right. Exactly.
Oh God.
Exactly.
All right. Back to the present day as we take a look at. You know what? I pulled up the icon because the icon is done. I wanted to see if I could get a clue out of the icon today, and we'll watch this. You look at the representation here. I'm looking at the upper air, and you see that deep trough that's off the East Coast. This is this is actually Tuesday night. That is Sam. Now, if you look at this, it's easy. Westerlies all the way down to south of the Bahamas. It should turn northeast long before it even gets to Bermuda. But let's take a look at what happens. What's happening is that the upper ridge, which is out back here south of the Azores, starts to strengthen again. And the trough begins to pull out to an extent. It begins to lift out in the southern part of it. So Sam continues on this sort of west-northwest and then northwest coast course. And now, of course, you've got this deep trough. Another arm comes around. There's a deep trough there. Are you still with me, Joe? Well, there you go.
Yes, I'm still with you.
Deep trough.
The executive producer came down to fix my camera angle in the aftermath of my showing the video of our former governor in chief or whatever.
Gotcha. So here's your trough on the icon. and it looks like it goes well, passes well east of Bermuda, and slingshots. The icon wants to slingshot this back up toward Newfoundland. So I don't know. We're going back and forth on this, but my point is that if that's the case, we're going to have this deep trough off the East Coast. It's going to be on the cool side in the East for much of this week, and even going into next weekend. If this is correct, if the orientation is like this, where you're going to take it up into Newfoundland, or in the waters between Newfoundland and eastern Nova Scotia, right in there, that's going to alter the upper air pattern to an extent. Get this northwest flow here, so I mean that explains at least the fact that it's going to be mostly dry, but it will be. It will be cooler, so I would argue that maybe they're a little bit overzealous in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states with their temperature profiles. Perhaps they may look at that when they do their next forecast and make some alterations. But when was that CPC forecast done?
Last night.
Was it last night?
Well, the 3 to 4 week was done on Friday. Every Friday they do the 3 to 4 week experimental.
Right.
I don't know. They've been doing experimental now for 5 years. I don't know when the experiment is finally going to come to an end. But the 6 to 10 and the 8 to 14 day are done on a daily basis. The only difference is that on Saturday and Sunday they're not accompanied by a discussion. They simply just
put it out there.
But Monday through Friday they have an explanation or discussion or prognostic discussion for each graphic, but they don't do that on Sunday. I guess they get a little bit of time off over the weekend.
Yeah, I would think. And if they did it last night, it was over the. If they did the forecast, they issued it last night. It was done probably based on the 0Z GFS run from Friday night. So we've had. We've had 6 runs since then, so we'll see. Meanwhile, I got the icon up only because it's already completed its cycle. It's almost all done. Well, actually, it is all done. So let's see. Let's roll through what it has to say. The only day that we have to worry about any showers, Joe, I think, is probably Tuesday with this front going by, and I think the showers themselves will be kind of scattered and nothing really crazy. Maybe they impact the weather for a couple of hours, but as far as an all day type of rain, that ain't going to happen. In fact, the icon is pretty unimpressive here with this front. It's showing precip, and it's not a radar view. It's just showing precip, and the precip that it's indicating is mostly on the light side, probably between 1/10 and 1/4 of an inch at most. And actually, that's from a 1/10 to 1/4. So you see it there for Tuesday afternoon. Little front goes by, and of course, with the trough strengthening offshore, the thickness has really dropped. Look at that, Joe. 546 thickness to eastern Long Island, and a 540 thickness up in Maine. So this is cool air, and it's dry air. Humidity levels low, and if we take this along, higher pressures build right through next weekend. This is nice. This is good weather for the east. And of course, you see how Sam comes in on the corner and then passes well east of Bermuda. Now, bear in mind, it's the icon. The icon does not have the best track record in the world. Every once in a while, it gets something right, but a lot of times it's playing catch up. I will say that considering what the European was doing with this last week, the GFS has been fairly consistent overall, much more consistent than the other models with this. So if it winds up being correct that Sam stays out offshore and is never a problem, in my mind,
I can live with that.
Well, it puts a challenge to the European as everybody's go-to model. That just because the European says something's going to happen doesn't necessarily mean it's right. And I think in the last year, the European has not been especially good. How's that for an analysis, Joe? The European has not been especially good.
It all goes back to the
Exceptionally good.
European it goes back to 2012,
Yeah.
when the European was the only model that showed that curve to the left into New Jersey with Sandy, that everybody said, oh, the European is the king. Oh, we're going to be looking at the European from here on. And that has now stretched out to nearly a decade. Next October, will be 10 years since Sandy. And yeah, the European has had some very good times, but it's also had some not so good times, as you just pointed out. And that's why the need for looking at not just one model, but a whole bunch of other models. The same thing, like, for example, with the NAM, when the NAM was the only model with that 35-inch snowfall for you. I think it was in 2016.
Yeah.
In 2016 or whatever, and all the other models were saying, like, no, it's going to be like 4 to 8 or 5 to 10. It's not going to. Oh, the NAM would, and at the last minute, oh, the NAM is right.
Yeah, the models and models, especially the NAM model. The NAM model has this tendency to get a hot hand and just bang it away for weeks at a time, where it's very, very good. And the trick is you got to catch it. You have to pay attention to it. I've always made it a point to look at it every day, because you never know when it gets into one of these long streaks where it goes for weeks, just hammering and nailing one after another, especially in the wintertime. The models all have their problems in the summer when it gets convective and it becomes a matter of watching for thunderstorms and everything else, and they never do justice to what the radar ultimately looks like, and they're never uniform in their solutions either. But when it comes to the winter time, where it's a more uniform area of precip that you're looking at, the NAM can get scary good at times. And the only way you're going to know that is if you look at it every day and pay attention to it. And then you sit around and you get accused of not being a serious forecaster because you rely on the NAM model, which is what happened to me, but some non-meteorological moron. That was a long, long time ago.
I mean, after the NAM hit that one big snowstorm, for many, many months, in fact, for years afterwards, everybody always said, when we were within 5 days of a potential big storm, oh, what does the NAM say? Well, we can't tell you, because the NAM only goes out 84 hours. But They were still thinking about how great the NAM was with that one storm. It's the same thing with Sandy and the European. When Sandy was nailed by the European, and they admittedly did a great job in handling Sandy, but ever since then, whenever something happens, oh, well, what did the Europeans say?
Right. Well, look, I'm going to say this: the NAM is scheduled to go away next year, just like it was scheduled to go away before 2017, and then that the January blizzard that year saved it. Well, let's hope. Yes. Let's see if it can pull another rabbit out of a hat and wind up getting another East Coast blizzard. And the NAM if the NAM performs exceptionally well, whether it gets another lifesaver.
Well, I could tell you a little bit of. I did a little bit of research this past week, and I'll post it on my Facebook page sometime during this week. The New York, of course, Central Park. This was the second wettest summer meteorological summer. June, July, and August on record. And I took a look at all the other summers. I didn't go as far as 20 years, but I did go 10 years, and found that in 7 of those 10 years, Joe, the following winter, the snowfall at Central Park was below normal, believe it or not. So, you're going simply on that, and 10 is, out of 150 years. That's like a rather small sampling.
Subset.
But if you go by that, that's like you say there's a 70% probability that the average. And I'm waiting for the Weather Service, the National Weather Service, to update their tables. They're still working on for a winter season. They're still saying like 23, 24 inches for Central Park. That's not right. I mean, like the last 30 years.
Yeah, it should be up around 30. The new mean is about 30, which is what the mean was back in the 70s,
right?
Based on the years before, and the long-term average is probably at around 29. So, well,
Right.
if you did,
Right.
if you go back and add 150 years and divide it by 150.
But because if you look at those 10 wet years, actually 9, because, well, yeah, you could do 10 because this, if you add this year, that would make 11. But you go to the 10 wettest summers, the following winter, the snowfall amounts at Central Park ranged anywhere from like 15 to maybe 23 or 24 inches. There were 3 of them that stood out, like something like 45 to 50 inches. But again, that's only 3 out of 10. But more often than not, the following winter was, below the norm. So who's to say? Maybe this year might be a below normal winter snow-wise. Um, I'm still mad that we didn't get. I, I had said based upon these statistical numbers before the winter even began last year, I said it looks like we're heading for a 40-plus inch year at Central Park, and we came 1.4 inches shy of 40. And this coming off of a
Close enough.
Previous year when we had like 5 inches
Close
of
enough.
snow. So sometimes these numbers, these statistical numbers, you see all these long range forecasts. Oh, well, based upon the orientation of the upper level trough and the sunspot numbers and this and that,
Blah,
and you
blah,
make these long range
blah.
predictions, blah blah blah. But sometimes when you look at just the bare bones numbers, the statistics, sometimes you can come up with a very good outlook. So that's what I might officially or unofficially say for the wintertime season, at least for Central Park, that it may turn out to be below normal in terms of snowfall this winter season. We'll see.
All right. Well, that would be the first time since back in the 1990s that we would have had 3 out of 4 below normal years, if that's the case. So we'll
Right.
see. All right, you know what? It's a beautiful Sunday. The chairman is on vacation, so I don't have the usual Sunday Briller Jeopardy. So and I'm assuming you don't have one either. So we'll save it for tomorrow, Monday, and I know everybody's out enjoying this gorgeous weather. So and as well they should be. So the Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, 631 756-1125 for the best prices in town, especially if you got to load up on salt for this rock salt for this coming winter. OmniTrueValue.com is the website, and Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini, your complete holiday lighting specialist, meeting all your decorating needs at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst. And their phone number is 631-957-5106. If you're attending their open house on October the 5th, call that number to RSVP or go to the website liholidaylighting.com. So in the meantime, whoops, hold on a second. Let me get that way. I got to find.
I will be spending the afternoon as soon as my.
Oh, there we go.
The one thing about these cool, calm nights is the formation of dew.
Yes.
And there's a lot of dew, a lot of dippity dew on my grass right now. And so I have to wait until like early to mid-afternoon for the grass to completely dry out before I could take out the tractor mower. But that's what I will be doing. I'll be going up and down on the tractor, mowing the lawn on a beautiful Sunday afternoon. So I hope a lot of you out there.
Go ahead. Yeah. No, I'm just going to be hanging around the house and probably go to the park later. In the meantime, I'm going to put a nice roast chicken in the oven and a few potatoes and watch a little football.
Did you see, by the way, I posted yesterday on my personal Facebook page, the Dennis the Menace cartoon?
I did not see that.
You did not see that. Can I once again just ask one more time before we close out? This is worth my I got a huge kick out of this. Let me just hang on for a second. I'm just going to go. I didn't bring the. Let me just bring this up. Very, very. I'm thinking about it too. Hold on. Da, 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 da. And all right. So
You got sharing.
I don't think I don't think I can bring this.
All right. You know what? Save it for tomorrow and do it tomorrow.
I'll save it for tomorrow when we have a bigger crowd or whatever. And it was funny. Let's just put it that way.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Again, thanks to the super chat hits from Steve LaPointe, Izzy D, Leon Probitsky, Leon of Lindenhurst. Thanks very much indeed. And we will, whoops, there we go. We'll see you tomorrow. Whoop, hold on. I don't want to go out on black. Just a second. Just a second here. I was just this is what happens when I hit buttons too quickly. There we go. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a great Sunday.
Bye-bye.